Здравствуйте, Дмитрий. Меня слышно хорошо?
Да, отлично слышно.
Ура, супер.
Добрый день.
Добрый.
А то ж я стал переживать. Без 10.
Да тут нам наш программист настроил вчера монитор, настроил так, что наушники перестали работать, и мы начали быстрее все это делать.
Ну, все отлично. И слышимость хорошая. Все идеально.
Вот. Ну, нет худ без добра.
Ну что же, ждем участия.
Да, да.
Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте.
Здрасте.
Сегодня я буду модерировать эту секцию. Меня зовут Артем.
Артем, сейчас я тебе передам права. Меня слышишь?
Да.
Все, я передала тебе свои обязанности.
Понял, приступаю.
Татьяна Владимировна, добрый день.
Ой, Ольга Владимировна, здравствуйте. Здравствуйте. Да, вижу.
Добрый день.
Добрый, добрый.
Доброе утро. Good morning.
Good morning.
Всем привет.
Well, we have our first contender. Connected. Я вижу, что участник подключился. Мы начнем прямо вовремя или можем сейчас начать?
Нет, давай еще подождем, потому что 12:57. Сейчас подожду. А жюри все собрались? Ты видишь подписку?
Сейчас проверим.
Василий Новиков из Миссии.
А вот у меня вопрос. Закурин Антон.
Да, совершенно верно, это я.
Прекрасно. Вы откуда?
Ирина Владимировна Яковлевна должна была быть в жюри, но не
Всё, я
смогла. И, видимо, меня попросили присутствовать.
Всё,
Да, я
всё.
могу вам показаться.
Хорошо, я поняла, потому что я... Артем, значит, вместо Яковлевой Ирины Владимировны.
Понял.
В команде ФИЦ биотехнологии замена.
Да.
I will promote our contenders to panelists now.
Да. Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги.
Hello.
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 Okay.
Good
We are
afternoon.
all in English.
1 second, I want to open my presentation.
No, Yulia, it's not your time.
It's not your time.
Are you going to make a presentation? No, no. Please wait a bit.
Coordinate.
Julia, could you please change your name in this system because your name is in Russian, Yulia.
And please add your surname. Well, we have other contenders connected. I'll promote them.
I suppose that we can start.
We have 5 minutes. Все еще.
It's already 1 p.m. But if you need 2 more minutes, I think it's okay. Okay, Artyom, I think that we should start. Are you agree with me?
I think we can start.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Today is the second day of our international workshop, and we are ready to start. Okay, the first speaker is Artyom. Help me with the first speaker of this day.
First speaker is Javier Pagan Avacambra
From Spain.
from Spain.
Javier, it's your time. Please turn on your video and mic.
Hello.
Hello.
Great.
How can I share the screen? Is my screen
The
sharing?
the green button share screen. The sharing is allowed now.
Okay. All right. So, good morning, everybody. My name is Javier Pagan, and today I'm going to talk to you about quantum factoring, or in other words, today I'm going to show you how to rob a bank. So don't worry about this. This is public knowledge. It's knowledge that everyone has access to. And it relies on the fact that the whole of the security of banks, of phones, is really linked to the problem of factorizing integers into prime numbers. So before playing my video presentation, I would like to clarify the concept of factoring, of factorizing integers into prime numbers. So there's this theorem in maths that every integer can be uniquely expressed as a product of prime numbers. That is, if you take this sequence of prime numbers and you multiply them together, you get your original number. So for banks, this large number is the public key. Everyone has access to it. And if you factorize this and get the prime factors, which is a really hard thing to do, then you will find the private keys, and you will have access to everything that the bank can do, including the money. So I'm about to play my video. I hope you like it.
It's moving pictures without voice, I think.
Video
Can't hear you.
sound is not good.
Sorry?
We can't hear you. We can see your video, but we can't hear you. I don't know why.
In share screen options, you can.
Okay, let's see if I can.
There is an option to share the computer sound.
Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna stop screen sharing. Okay, so that should be working now.
Mhm.
So can you see the video though?
Yet,
No.
just you.
Okay, sorry. It's my first time using this. Okay, I think it should be working. Can you hear it now?
I think a bit better than in previous time.
Okay, shall I play it?
Yes, yes, sure.
Okay.
Mm. Once more, without voice.
Sorry?
It's a very good voice from organization, from organizer of
I'm
conference.
sorry, but I
And,
can't hear anything.
Dear jury, could you please disable your microphones?
No, I don't see, I don't hear any sound from a speaker.
But are you not hearing the video?
Yes, but we don't hear the sound translated to the conference.
Sorry?
No, we don't hear any sound from the video, unfortunately.
You can't hear the sound from the video.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
Do you know how I can enable both screen sharing and audio sharing?
One second,
maybe,
I will check how it is done.
Okay. Let's see if you can hear it now.
Factorizing integers is hard. So hard that the most widely used security.
Can you hear that?
This is better.
Yes.
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 Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. First time using Zoom.
Okay.
Algorithms in the world rely strongly on it. As motivation for my project, we will have a look at how the prime factors of very large integers can be used to cipher. And decipher messages.
It's precisely T prime numbers. These are the private keys and only Bob knows them. Alice then uses Bob's public key to encrypt her message and delivers it, confident that only Bob will be able to read it. Finally, Bob uses his private keys to decipher the message.
These are the basics of the RSA security system. The very same system that your phone uses to make sure that your private WhatsApp conversations stay private and that no one hacks into your bank account. Now, all of this relies on how truly hard it is to factorize integers into prime numbers. And it is. Provided we're using a classical computer, quantum computers could make things very different. I'm going to tell you about the basics of quantum computing, but first, I need to tell you about light. Then, we'll move on to numbers. And lastly, we will talk about numbers using the language of light.
Light is an electromagnetic wave, so electric and magnetic field vibrating. The direction along which the E field vibrates is called the polarization of the wave. It can be decomposed therefore into horizontal and vertical components. In classical physics, the vibration can have as much or as little energy as we want, but in quantum mechanics, it is transmitted in wave packets called photons, with a minimal amount of energy. In this way, we can have 1, 2, or 3 photons, but never half or 3/4. Now, take a photon polarized at 45 degrees and pass it through a horizontal polarizer. That is a device that absorbs the vertical component and lets the horizontal component through. What we find is that there's a 1/2 probability of the photon being absorbed and a 1/2 probability of the photon being transmitted. This is summarized in the quantum polarization state, psi, of the system. It is characterized by 2 angles, so we can think about it as a point in a sphere. Let's now assign a value 0 to a horizontal state and a value 1 to a vertical state. We have just defined a qubit, the quantum unit of information. In contrast with classical bits, which can only take the value 0 or 1, qubits can take the value 0, 1, or any linear combination. We can also use many qubits to represent numbers in binary language. The quantum information stored in qubits can be manipulated using quantum gates, which can act on a single qubit or on many qubits at the same time. Important examples of single qubit gates are the Hadamard gate, represented by the letter H, on the phase shift gate Zn. Both are represented like matrices in the HV polarization space. As example of many qubit gates, we have the CNOT gate, which negates 1 qubit only when the control qubit takes the value 1. The swap gate, which makes 2 qubits swap places, and the quantum Fourier transform, or QFT, which has a complicated mathematical expression. But don't worry about that. You just need to know that when acting on 0, it generates an equiprobable superposition of numbers. Moving on to numbers, suppose we want to hack into a bank whose public key is alpha. And we know that it must be the product of 2 primes, P and Q. The question is, how can we find P and Q? The big idea is to choose a number A, less than alpha, which doesn't share any prime factors with it. That is, the GCD of A and alpha must be equal to 1. And then construct a modular exponentiation function, MEF. This means raise A to the power of x and take the remainder upon division by alpha. There's a theorem in maths that guarantees this function is periodic. Let's call the period R. And if R is an even number, it's straightforward and left as a mathematical challenge to find P and Q. So the question is how to find the period. And to do this, we use Shor's algorithm. We start off with 2 registers of qubits. We prepare the first one on a 0 state, and the second one on a particular superposition inspired by the MEF. We apply a QFT on the orange qubits and entangle them with the purple register, so that if we measure x on the orange, we must measure a to the power of x on the purple. We then take orange qubits and apply a second QFT, and after going through the ugliest piece of math I've encountered in my career, we found that we can only measure multiples of 2 to the power of n divided by r. Finally, we just need to try different values of r consistent with our measurement until we find the right one. Finally, we'll design a circuit of quantum gates to factorize number 15, and we'll explore how this circuit can be implemented for photon qubits. It is easy to verify that the best choice of A for this value of alpha is A equals 11, as the powers of 11 mod 15 depend only on the parity of the exponent. So if we raise A to an even power, we get 1, and if we raise it to an odd power, we get 11. We also choose n equals 2 for the QFT. After entanglement, the state of the system is a superposition of 0, 1, 1, 11, 2, 1, 3, 11. And if we write this in binary, we find that the red digits of the second register are controlled by the last digits of the first. Hence, we can achieve the effect of the first QFT and the entanglement using Hadamard and CNOT gates. For the second QFT, we just copy down the corresponding circuit with controlled phase shifts, Hadamards, and swaps. It's also easy to see that the first 3 gates in qubit 1 cancel each other out, so we can get rid of them. At last, the final state of the orange qubit is just a superposition of 0 and 2, so choosing r equals 2, we find p equals 5 and q equals 3, yielding a correct factorization. To implement this quantum circuit using light, we need to introduce two pretty extended optical devices: polarizing beam splitters and half-wave plates. Polarizing beam splitters consist of a half-silvered plate that reflects vertically polarized light and transmits horizontally polarized light. Wave plates, on the other hand, are transparent plates that have different refractive indices for different polarizations. Hence, one component lags with respect to the other one. For a half-wave plate, this lag is of 180 degrees. The half-wave plates are like Hadamard gates, while the polarizing beam splitters can be used to construct C0 gates. Hence, we find our final optical circuit.
As we have seen, it is fairly simple to design a quantum circuit to factorize a specific semiprime. And a possible way to build on the ground of this project would be to construct a neural network able to do what we have done here and provide a specific circuit for any semiprime that we input. This would indeed signify the end of the RSA system and the beginning of a new information era, this time quantum.
Right, so as a bit of a conclusion for my project, let me just close the video. We could say that quantum computing is today what nuclear physics was about 100 years ago. So it has the potential to do really bad and really dangerous things, like hacking into any computer in the world, robbing banks, spying. But it also has the potential to massively change the world that we live in, to provide quantum computers, provide algorithms that are much faster than classical computers, a quantum internet, and especially quantum cryptography, which would be another algorithm for security that banks could use to prevent hacking, and that is by definition and by construction unhackable. So thank you very much, and thank you for your attention and for your time.
Thank you very much for your great research. Questions from the jury?
Yes. Thank you for the good report, good work, Javier. And I have some questions. At first, you have constructed your qubits in a paper or in a practice unit?
So it is really just a theoretical design. My main work was using Shor's algorithm to design a circuit of logic gates to factorize a relatively easy integer, which is 15. We all know that 15 is 3 times 5. And then I also thought of a way to implementing this using using optical devices, namely polarizing beam splitters and half-wave plates. So this is just a theoretical idea plus a proposal for an experimental setup.
And you already use the results of your work, or you plan to use it?
So right now, I'm actually learning I'm actually working on machine learning and developing the last idea that I mentioned, to design a neural network that is able to do what we have done here and just design a specific circuit for every number that we want to factorize. So the idea is you don't build a program that can do it systematically, but you build a neural network that can learn how to do it in the same way that I've learned.
Okay, but now you can you have you one experiment or one exercise with your theory?
So I haven't carried out any. Sorry?
Okay. You already can you give us the one как пример?
Example.
One example of applying your theory.
So one example of applying my theory would be to just pick your favorite bank in the world, log into the website, get their public key. That is a very large integer with a lot of digits. And if you get that integer and you factorize it, that is, you find the prime numbers that it breaks down to, and you have access to it, all the information in the bank. So you can basically hack into any system.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Javier, thank you very much for your presentation. I have two questions. The first of my questions, are you a school student?
I'm a university student at the moment.
Oh, of course. Of course. For school, it's too great job.
Yeah, this project I did it when I was in my last year of high school in Spain, and now I've been in the University of Manchester for 2 years.
Okay, Javier, and you said that you are working on the program which integrated with machine learning, yeah?
Yes.
Please describe me the methods when you are using, which you are using as a machine learning.
I'm actually just learning the basics of machine learning. I just started to learn computing last year, Python actually.
Okay.
So now I'm just working in basic machine learning algorithms for Python.
So
just data fitting.
In this way, I give you an advice. If you will learn the Python and if you will able to write scripts on the Python, please introduce the data sets. The data sets is the key for writing the scripts with your theory on the Python.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
More questions? More questions from the jury to Javier? No?
I have one question. Thank you for the presentation, Javier, but I didn't find any review of current state of the science in this question, in this field. Are there the solution, because we have well known that quantum computers do faster matrix multiplication, and how current well-known solutions correlate with your idea and your progress?
Okay, so quantum computing is still an area on development. So we know quite a lot about the theory, so about the quantum circuits and using quantum logics to develop algorithm. But the hard thing is to find physical objects that can act like qubits, as in my case where the photons. Many people are using electrons, nuclei, even some weird and complex molecules. Also, it is challenging. So in actual research, it is quite challenging to get entangled states. So as you've seen, to factorize 15, we need six qubits, I think 6 photons, and you need to entangle all of them together. Now, the tricky thing about entanglement is that it's a really fragile state, and photons in particular interact with everything. So as long as one photon interacts with everything, your entangled state breaks and you can no longer use it. And so right now, a lot of research that is being done in the area is looking towards making entangled states more secure and more stable. That is, for example, what topological quantum computing is about. You take a bunch of qubits and you entangle them in a very specific and complicated way that is very hard to break. So the challenge, To conclude, we could say that the challenge right now is not that much about the theory, but finding physical objects and physical processes to carry out these logic gates and these qubits.
I'm sorry, I asked another question, not about the experimental realization, but the background of your theoretical research and your theoretical proposal. What is well known? What do you know of the scientific works in the task that you settled and solved?
Okay.
Who tried to solve this this issue also?
So the Shor's algorithm, which is really the only algorithm that we have to factorize integers, was developed in the 1980s, I think, by Peter Shor in somewhere in the US. I don't remember exactly where. So that is well known. And right now, there are a lot of research groups that are trying to, well, do what I've done here, but with all the qubits. So there are some people doing it with photons, as I have, or with electrons, and basically trying to experimentally realize Shor's algorithm. The tricky thing about carrying out Shor's algorithm is that, in principle, you need a lot of qubits. You need a lot of physical objects to work with, and if you are trying to factorize large numbers, that is not practical. So an important part for the theoretical work is to try and simplify Shor's algorithm. So you need to find what gates that you're using are actually doing something and which ones are canceling each other out, and how you can simplify the system. You have two parameters that you can choose. One is A, the other one is N, for the QFT. And you just need to choose them in a smart way so that they simplify your work. So simplifying is a big thing in this area.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I propose to move on to our next contender, Javier Simancas. I hope I spelled it right.
From Spain also.
Good morning, my name is Javier Simancas. I come from Spain, and today I'm gonna talk about my project. I also have recorded the presentation. I hope you can see it and hear it well. From time to time, it is possible to see on the news how a person was able to acquire a prosthetic product thanks to the government grants or crowdfundings. This made me raise a question. Are these products so expensive that people need to resort to help in order to afford them? Good morning, my name is Javier Simancas, and today I would like to answer this question with all of you and with my project, Proof of Concept for the Production of Accessible Prostheses. Here we can see the index that we will follow. First, we start with motivations, then planification, state-of-the-art, prototype building, and finally, conclusions. This project is born as an attempt to solve this problem. Would it be possible to produce a low-cost prosthetic arm with the same functionality that the ones that are commercialized? To answer this question, a prototype was built and compared to the ones that are already on the market. The first part of the project was to plan what was going to be done. Here you can see all the steps that were involved and that I will explain later on. In the last years, prostheses have developed in an exponential way. This is thanks to the use of the two biggest technologies in the field, electromyography and 3D impressions. Electromyography is a control technology that enables users to control the prosthetic arm by using the EMG signals of their muscles. Because of the difficulty of this technology and the lack of resources, it was not possible to include it in the prototype. Then we have 3D impressions, a production technology that is basically overlapping layers of a specific material, in the prototype case polylactic acid, in order to build a model from a digital blueprint. On the right of this slide, we can see how some of the 3D models look like on the computer before printing them. On the left, it is shown all the details of the printing process, the components and the number of pieces of each, its weight, and the time that it took to print them. Once the components were printed, it was time to assemble them as well as the mechanical parts of the prototype. The mechanics are formed by 4 servomotors, 3 for the fingers and 1 for the wrist, and an Arduino board to control them. For being able to open and close the finger, nylon wire was used simulating tendons. By pulling from one end or another of the tendon, the finger expands or contracts. Now that we have the servomotors in place, it is time to explain how it is possible to control them. To do so, an Android app was developed, enabling the control of the arm using a mobile phone. Here we can see an extract from the code of the app, as well as the interface that the app shows. It is controlled by buttons where you can open and close a finger, or even the full palm, as well as a partial movement with the sliders, the horizontal bars. An extra gripping function was included, as it is the most useful one. Here you can see a demonstration of how the arm works. Then I thought, why stopping here? What if I could develop a more accessible app? That's the reason behind the second interface, the voice control. Here you can see an extract of the source code, as well as the app screen. Open, close, open, close, open. Then again, I thought, what else can I do? What if I could develop a hands-free control? And I came up with an idea. Every mobile phone has a gyroscope, so the app uses it as a way to control the arm by moving the phone. The x-axis is linked to the wrist movement, and the z one with opening and closing the hand. But how does the data work once it reaches the Arduino board? In this flowchart, we can follow the same path that the data does. Depending on its length, it is linked with a partial or full movement, as well as the servo motor that controls that action. In order to carry out the project, it was needed to learn new technologies. Here we can see a description of some of them. In first place, I would like to talk about Cura, a free software where the 3D models were modified. The original arm was a right hand, and as I'm left-handed, it was turned into a left hand as a reivindication, as I feel we sometimes are left aside. Once the models were modified, they were printed, and for that I needed to learn to use a 3D printer. Then we have both Android and Arduino coding language, which were necessary in order to control the arm. And finally, we have the software Lucidchart that made able doing the previously seen flowchart, and obviously PowerPoint. Now it is time to analyze the prototype. It was possible to acquire free 3D models that later on were printed and assembled into a functional prosthesis. The arm required a control method, and to do so, an Arduino program as well as an Android app were made from scratch, concluding the prototype building. The aim of the project was to see if whether a 3D printed low-cost prosthesis could copy the functionalities of a commercialized prosthetic arm. Instead, the prototype exceeded all kinds of expectations, adding new functionalities, such as motion and voice control. In this chart, we can see the expenses of the project, 73 euros against the $3,000 price that a simple arm has, or the $100,000 that the cutting-edge prosthesis cost. As a result, I can conclude that it is possible to build a low-cost prosthesis arm, affordable to every person and improving their quality of life. Thanks for your attention, and it's been a pleasure being here with all of you.
Thank you for the presentation.
Now, if you have any question, I'll be willing to answer them.
Well, any questions from the jury?
Hello, Javier. Thank you for the presentation. I have some questions. Maybe I didn't hear it, but can you tell, does your prototype work with battery or electrical socket?
Yes, sure. Here you can see this is the prototype, and here is a power bank, the same that you on mobile phones to charge when you are not home. It's something to be thought to be improved in the prototype. As you can see, it's not very accessible, but also because of the lack of resources, we cannot not access to smaller batteries. But it's something that could be changed into a smaller battery or any other kinds of power supplies.
Okay, thank you. And what are you planning? Do you plan to upgrade somehow your prototype and use it? How to use it?
Yes, I would like to improve everything because the materials that we have access to were not the best as we can. I don't know if you can see, the fingers are not of very good quality, but I think that at the state the arm is right now, it could help to a lot of people to improve their quality of life.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have another question. How many people is working on this project?
This project, I did it alone with only my tutor from the high school. I did it 2 years ago when I was 17, but I did it everything on my own.
So how long it takes you to make this from the very beginning? From the very beginning.
From the very beginning, I think it took me almost 2 years to develop the arm.
And you done the 3D prototype, yes, on the.
As I said in the presentation, the prototypes were acquired from a web page and they were free. But then I had to do some modifications in order to make it available to introduce all the mechanical parts, the Arduino board, and everything. So they were from the internet, but I had to modify them.
Oh, okay, I see. And do you plan to make, for example, leg or something else?
Actually, I would like to focus on arms because they are more difficult and more complex, as you have to develop all the functions that the hand has, as picking an object or maybe giving a handshake. I don't know. I would like to focus on arms and hands.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Javier, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
What is the weight of your prototype?
Sorry?
What is the weight in kilograms or maybe grams of your prototype?
The prototype is less than a kilogram. I think it's around 700 grams. So it's not really heavy.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Javier, one question. You make accessible prototypes of prostheses, and for men, which signals you plan use for control of your prosthesis?
Actually, that's one of the lines I would like to develop on the next prototype. I would like to do that is using the EMG signals that are the electric impulses that the nerve sends to the muscles. But that is a really difficult technology, and it has a lot of invasive control, and it's more difficult and complex to implement in the prototype.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We have a question from the jury. Dmitry Kotkov, you can speak.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentations and for this work, Javier. I have one question. You took very extremely difficult problem because, you know, big companies take much efforts and financing to develop most advanced prostheses. It's very hard in different field because of series of issues they face to make something even closer to the bionic bio hand. Why do you take the problem that obviously you couldn't make by yourself completely? For example, to make prosthetic leg much easier because there are less component and issues you should solve to make something acceptable on the market. I mean, it's closer way to the market. Then for a hand, for example, and there are many other issues. But the question, why you take to solve the problem, which rarely you could bring to the market?
That's a really good question. When I first started this project, I just wanted to see if it was possible to create a 3D printed arm. But then, as I was developing it, I thought, and why people can use it? Is it really that difficult to make a prosthesis product that is actually useful for people? And then I started developing all the arm, all the control, the app, everything. And I thought, then if one student can do this, why companies don't focus their research on making accessible these kind of products to everyone? And it's basically a matter of money and yeah, it's something that maybe one person cannot change, but if my projects help someone to develop a more complex processes and in a chain, in some kind of chain, maybe we can get somewhere and help if it's just one people we can help, one person we can help, then it will be worth it.
Okay, there are open frameworks of communities who work on to solve this issue, not companies, but also enthusiasts who work in this field. Do you participate in some kind of community, or you work by yourself? For example, I mean, you said that you updated a model that you just find on internet, and maybe this modification could be valuable for the community. Do you share it? This question concerning the final output of your work. If it couldn't be make it on the market, maybe it could be make it to the community, as you mentioned it. So do you cooperate in some kind of open communities in this field?
Yes, as you said, they were actually a lot of 3D models to print, but I didn't find any kind of coding and control app. So that's the thing I developed. And right now it is possible to access to everything, the app control, the 3D models, and the Arduino code, because I upload it to a platform on internet where everyone can access to it. So everyone that wants to use it is free to do it. The next step, it will be to create some kind of community in order to develop it all together and improve the prototype.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation and for the questions. I propose to move to the next contender. Contenders, I think.
Коллеги, я прошу прощения, но, по-моему, совершенно не придерживаемся нашего расписания. Может быть, мы ограничимся 3 вопросами на одного докладчика?
Ну вот я вот тоже так думаю, потому что сейчас...
Иначе мы не окончим до 6, а я уже назначила занятие.
Значит, соблюдаем регламент строже. Тогда у нас we have our next contenders.
Я понимаю, что у нас технические трудности возникают, да, но...
Gabriel Merlo, Cristina Caprio, Andrea Zeppa from Italy. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The third member can't be here because he's sick, so he won't be presenting with us today. It's only the 2 of us.
Okay, your sound is duplicating. You're in the one room.
Yeah, I don't know why.
You're in the one room, yeah?
Sorry?
You are in the one room.
Are you in the same place? I mean, you both. Or in different places?
Yeah, we're in the same room, but we are far away from each other.
Well, the sound is still echoing.
It's because of they use 2 microphones.
Yes.
We could maybe mute the one that isn't speaking. So, for example, since I start now, Gabriele can mute himself, and then I'll be the only one speaking, like this.
Much better, thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Okay. I start sharing the presentation. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So our project is called Prunosome, From Leaves to Anti-Age Creams, the magic of liposomes and vegetable antioxidants. It all started in the summer of 2018 from observing a project made by our peers about extracting antioxidant from wine leaves. We decided to try over 50 types of leaves in order to determine which one had the highest amount of antioxidants. We then realized in extract using a certain type of leaves, the prunus leaves, and then we encapsulated our extract in liposomes in order to enhance its power. And finally, we prepared a cream with our extract, and of course, we made some tests on the cream to see if it was suitable for commerce. With this project, we had participated to the 31st edition of FAST, which is a national competition here in Italy. And then we went into UCIS 2019. The antioxidant molecules are polyphenols, which are indispensable for the life of leaves, and they also protect the vegetable. Often they can affect the color of the leaves, especially anthocyanins, which are among the most powerful antioxidants. Polyphenols not only have an antioxidant power, but they can also have anti-cancer power and antibacterial, antiviral power, and also anti-inflammatory power. Here you can see the structures of the polyphenols we mostly analyzed: anthocyanins, flavonols, and ACTA. Their structure are quite simple, but there are more type of polyphenols. So we just concentrated on the 3 of them because they are the most powerful ones. Basically, how does the antioxidant activity work? The mechanism is called chain breaker reactions. And basically, by donating a nitrogen or a proton to a free radical species, they decrease their radical activity. We extracted the polyphenols from leaves using a very simple method. Basically, you need to first shred the leaves, then let them macerate in a water solvent, and then we centrifugated them. We used a buffer, which was a tartaric buffer, because it helped us conserve the antioxidant power even when we freeze the extract, because we needed to use them again after a few months, and this way we were able to conserve it.
After that, we proceed with UV's spectrophotometric analysis in order to determine the quantity of polyphenols in each extract that we have done. And after that, we noticed that Prunus is the type of leaves that contains the most quantity of antioxidant. And thanks to this, we decided to proceed our project, concentrating us on this type of extract. After that, we decide to, as you can see from the next slide, we analyzed the Prunus extract with another analysis that is the HPLC analysis that allowed us to study and to study the quantity of each classes of polyphenols that is present in our extract. After that, we decided to increase the antioxidant power of the extract, encapsulating it in liposomes that are basically a micellar structure made by phospholipids, and the encapsulation of extract in these liposomes is very useful because we also created a cream that permit a better absorption of the extract through skin. The preparation of liposomes is easy. In fact, there are many techniques, and all of them have 3 phases. The first one is the lipid hydration. The second one is the resigning of the liposomes. And the last one is the dating of the non-encapsulated product. The preparation, as I had already said, it's easy. In fact, the synthetic lipids are hydrated with chloroform, and then they are dried up with a rotavapor. And finally, the lipidic film is hydrated with the extract. After that, we characterize the liposomes, and we study the diameter of these liposomes thanks to the DLS technique. And we noticed that the liposomes that contains extract are much bigger than liposomes without extract. So we know that these liposomes that are bigger contains the extract. Unfortunately, the liposomes that we have obtained are too big, so we decide to downsizing them with the extrusion or the sonification technique. After that, we decide to evaluate the antioxidant power of the extract and the liposomes. And to make this, we decide to proceed with the PPHSA, that is a radical that has a violet color, and a solution that contains the DPPH is discolorated by an antioxidant, and the discoloration is proportional to the antioxidant activity of our extract.
Finally, we prepared a cream. Anti-age creams basically can reduce spots and wrinkles, so they can be effective against radicals that can cause the premature aging of cells. Our cream is quite easy to prepare and it's quite innovative because of the active ingredients, because we use the prunus extract, which is something not anyone has ever used, and because we encapsulated the extract into liposomes first. Basically, first of all, you need to heat the aqueous phase up to around 70-80 degrees in order to not denature the active substances. Then you need to mix the lipids and the emulsifier and melt them at around 70 degrees. Then you need to add the extract at around 60 degrees because if the temperature is too high, the liposomes could open. And finally, you combine the two phases until you obtain the final cream. You do this by direct emulsification and the temperature is around room temperature. Here you can see a graph that shows the antioxidant power of our cream. We compared it with other creams that were already in commerce. As you can see, the cream with liposomes has a very high antioxidant power compared to the other creams. We use that base cream as a meter of comparison. And you can see that the cream with extract is already way more powerful than other creams, but with liposome it's even more powerful and effective. We then proceed to make some rheological and stability tests. We saw that the pH is suitable for skin because it's between 5 and 5.5, even after a long time. And then we saw that the viscosity was optimal for any type of container. We made this test at different temperatures and we repeated them after 21 days. We tried them at low temperatures, high temperatures, and room temperatures. And we saw also that rheological flux was optimal. We also tested the cream on some people that volunteered, and we saw that the spots were actually reduced. We still haven't had the time to test them to see if they work on wrinkles as well, but they should work on them as well. So in conclusion, our work can be considered an example of circular economy because we extracted the antioxidants from leaves that had already fallen on the ground, so they were waste materials. And we also saw that ornamental plants are better than fruit plants, not only because they are exposed to less chemical treatment, but because they also have a greater amount of antioxidants. Among the leaves that we compared, we saw that the best ones were berberis, Photinia red robin, Loropetalum, and prunus. But we ended up choosing the prunus because it was very powerful and it was also available with a great quantity on our territory. It's quite a common plant. About liposomes, we would like to try and reduce the size even more because they were still a bit too big. And we would like to try more powerful extraction with smaller filters. And finally, we saw that encapsulating the extract into liposome actually enhanced the antioxidant power, as you've seen from the essay with the DPPH. Our cream is, of course, a cosmetic application of our project, but the encapsulation of our extract in liposomes could be also used in other fields, for example, the food field. We are trying to use it for the conservation of wines, and it could also be used in pharmaceutical field. We also saw that prunus has a very high concentration of quercetin, and studies have demonstrated that quercetin can enhance immunitary defenses, and it could help with preventing illnesses such as COVID. Thank you for your attention and for listening to us.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. I have a question. Would you please say what anti-age cream you recommended for using? For example, what films?
Well, this is quite a complicated question because we saw that creams that are now in commerce are not that powerful, but we tested just a couple of creams. We didn't test all of them. But honestly, my advice is to start using anti-age creams before you actually get spots and wrinkles, because they work extremely well when you have to prevent them But once you get wrinkles and spots, they can make them less evident, but they cannot disappear. You need to start acting before they appear. So like around when you're 25, more or less, you feel like you don't get them, but they already start forming. So you might want to start using a cream by then. Of course, cream that are already in commerce have been tested, so they are actually effective. But most people don't see the difference because they start using them a bit too late.
Okay, I understand. I'm fail.
I have one question, if I may. Have you tried testing antioxidant activity after some shelf time?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear because I lagged a bit. Could you please repeat the second half of the question?
Have you tried antioxidant activity after some time?
Yeah, we actually repeated the test after some times. We saw that the antioxidant activity had decreased a bit, but not that much. There wasn't a significant difference.
And
of course,
continue answering, please.
I said that we repeated the test after a while to see if the antioxidant power had decreased. Of course, after a while, the liposomes start to wear off a bit, so the effect was less evident, but it was still quite powerful. There wasn't a significant decrease in the antioxidant power.
And have you thought about some conservants or other ways to preserve the liposomes?
Yeah, but of course, we had to ask the help of some cosmetic laboratories in order to realize our cream. And since we are just students, we are not professionals, we didn't want to use substances that we didn't know anything of. So we ended up not trying using conservants, as well because we wanted to try make a cream that was entirely natural without any conservants, but we could try adding them to it. The problem is that if you add conservants, the antioxidant power is reduced. We saw that the creams in commerce that had the highest amount of conservants were also the ones with the least amount of power. So if you want a very effective cream, it's best not to use conservants. Problem is, of course, that it wears off faster, but technically speaking, you should use an antioxidant cream at least twice a day. So, and you should put quite a big amount of it on your face, on your wrinkles and spots in order for it to work. So technically speaking, you should finish the jar of cream before you actually need to use conservants. So there shouldn't be a problem without using them. But of course, we tried to see if we could use them, but we saw that it really wasn't worth it.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a question from our chairman, Dmitry Grodkov.
We know the antioxidant quality of the liposomes well known, maybe more than 10 years ago. What exactly new results did you found, and did you make any publication in scientific paper of these results?
Okay, so basically, the innovation about our project isn't the antioxidant power of liposomes. Those were already known. What is innovative is that we used an extract from Prunus, which is a plant that has basically never been used before, and we used the encapsulation into liposomes to create an anti-age cream. That's what is innovative. If you try to look on the internet for creams that uses liposomes, you will not find anything except our project, because of course, participating into some competition has made our project public. So if you look for liposomes and creams, you will probably find our project, but nothing more. We are basically the first ones to test an encapsulation of an antioxidant extract into liposomes and then add it to cream. That's what is innovative. Liposomes were already being used. We also had to basically change a bit the preparation of liposomes. As my friend has said, there are different techniques. but we had to slightly change it because our extract wasn't getting into the liposome, so we had to change a part of the technique. But apart from that, there is nothing different in realizing the liposomes.
Thank you. Do you have the publication?
We
Not yet.
We didn't publish anything on scientific newspapers. We've only participated to competitions, so you can find, if you look for the competition we've been into, you can see that there is our abstract, but we never published the article because we wanted to try and get a patent.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the questions. I propose to move to our next contender, Vsevolod Pavlov from Russia.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, we can see you.
Do you hear me?
Yep.
Can you see the demonstration?
Yes.
Okay. So we start. My project is an elaboration of a maneuverable undersea vehicle moving with the aid of muscle power and bicycle drive, working at a depth up to 2,000 meters and exploration in coastal waters. The expected area of realization, the Black Sea, has been chosen owing to several factors. The first is the location of primary port cities, for example, Sevastopol, Novorossiysk, or Yalta, and gas pipelines, which are economically important for the Russian Federation nowadays, such as Blue Flow or the Turkish Flow, and also the availability of natural resources. The project will have the following expected practical applications: cleaning the bottom of the ponds and the area of water near the port, repair our vessels and their cleaning up without towing them to repair docks, rehabilitation of underwater gas pipelines without resorting to divers' help. Look at the photo. And of course, the organization of underwater tourism. One of the features of my vehicle is its hybridity, which lies in combination of sport underwater bike and the deep water bath escapes. Two pilots will carry our management. The internal atmosphere will be enriched by oxygen due to a chemical reaction of hydroperite and the correctness of manganese dioxide. To test the accuracy of my calculations and correctness of work of the devices and models, I created a scale model with a linear size ratio 1:5 was created. You can see it in the photo, and also you can see a two-dimensional model that I've done. Here you can see the stage of production, welding of stiffeners, and fixation of external wall. There are some internal components. First is the valves of the air system. Air system connecting hoses and electronic valves, and one of them lets air in the submersible tank, and the other lets it out in the water. Each one is connected to batteries through the unfastened buttons and opens with closure of contact. Then there you can see triple propellers that I've used, and under that photo you can see cameras that allow to coordinate the movement of the vehicle. On the following slides, you can see the draft of the innovations that I used in the project. The first is the casing. It was made multi-layered. And I've done it to reduce the weight without losses in strength. It consists of 4 main components: the external and internal metallic wall, 3 millimeters for the former and 1.5 millimeters for the latter. with a cavity between them filled with a polymeric layer and with stiffened ribs. The strength of the casing was tested in the altitude chamber with a high pressure. Then you can see the nozzle of the turbine with a triple propeller that allows to increase the power of outcoming water flow. There is an illustration of an effect of the position of the reverse shield on the direction of water flow. In a large underwater vehicle, it is supposed to use a two-wing reverse, similar to the reverse brake of the jet aircraft. The tests of the model has shown making a full-size vehicle is reasonable. It should simplify some types of underwater works in coastal waters. Also, my vehicle will serve with the mining industry in exploring natural resources. Then, with the aid of special built-in manipulators, it will be possible to start the trial mining and further deposit development. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for your attention. Now I can answer your questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions from our jury?
No questions?
My question is, Всеволод, what is main what is benefits of your vehicle?
I think one of the benefits is maneuverability. The next benefit is that it's cheaper than big bathyscapes, big deep-water bathyscapes. And also, I think that there shouldn't be special trained pilots for this vehicle, and every person could use it, and I think it can be a benefit.
That's all. That's all, and maybe something else.
I think that are the main benefits.
Okay, thank you.
Всеволод, I didn't notice. Do you mention any kind of manipulators which could be used in your device, or this is only a movable camera? So it's only monitoring, or some actions could be taken using this device?
Now, in this stage, with the model, yeah, we can only monitor some processes, but in the future, on big vehicles, it will be possible to manage some manipulators.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can only monitor something with the cameras.
Any questions?
Yes, Всеволод, one question. What's the max depth you achieved on your craft, and what the depth you like to achieve?
With the model, I've reached in the sea. I've reached 25 meters. It's the max depth that I they could use. But in the special camera, I've made pressure like on the 60 meters depth.
60.
Yeah, it can be used on the 60-meter depth, but it's about the model. But if we talk about a big vehicle, not a scale model, I think it could reach up to 200 meters.
Okay, you already understand what the tasks you can make, you can understand with your apparat. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation and for the questions.
Yeah.
I propose to move to our next contender, Jana Pachucha, if I spelled it right, from Serbia. I have seen her in the panelist list today. I cannot see her now.
I suppose that you can invite the next speaker from Spain if she's not here.
Well, let's move to our next contender after Jana, Cristina Garcia Arenas from Spain.
Hello. Do you hear me?
Sorry, we have our contender Jana Pachucha. Her internet has broken up. He will be here in a minute. I'm sorry. Yep, I can see Jana Pachucha. Now she's promoted to panelist. Jana, you can speak.
Jana? Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm sorry, I just lost the internet connection in a moment.
It's okay.
Okay, now I'm here. It's my turn, yes?
Yes.
Okay, I can share my screen. Mama. Okay, Here, now you can see the screen well.
Okay.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Jana and I'm coming from Serbia, and today I'm going to present you my last year project which I did in Petnica Science Center. The title of my research was Antifungal Activity of Neem Leaf Extract in Oil against Heterobasidium annosum. Well, as a forest daybreak represents a growing global problem as a consequence of accelerated climate changes. Therefore, similar influence... Do you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. As a consequence of, therefore, similar influence of changes in climate parameters is expected to be noticed in Serbian forests. In the last several decades, drying of conifers, mostly spruce, forest was observed in the area of national by many factors. One of main causes is spreading of fungus Heterobasidium annosum. This Basidium is considered to be the most economically important pathogen on the northern hemisphere, and it parasites on conifers, mostly on spruce, and causes root rot. It's easily spread on long distance by its basidiospores carried by the wind, which infect plants through cracks and damage bark tissues. Then, using a transport system of its host, fungus reaches the root where it forms mycelium. Then, by mycelial fragmentations, vicinal conifers are being easily infected. Also, this process could be accelerated by some soil insects. And due to Heterobasidium annosum infections, weaknut trees are becoming an easy target for other pathogens and parasites, especially bark beetles. On the other hand, Azadirachta indica, or neem, is a plant native for Indian subcontinent, where it has been used for various medical treatments since ancient times. During the last 5 decades, apart from chemistry of neem compounds, considerable progress has been achieved regarding the biological activity and potential medical applications of neem. Now, its microbial and antifungal effects are well known, and also neem's oils are compounds of some commercially available fungicides. It is also considered that neem has repellent effect on some insects, such as bark beetles. So this plant could be used as a control agent for these insects, which also causes serious damage to the forest and are usually connected with Heterobasidium annosum. So the aim of my research was to examine the potential antifungal effect of neem oil and leaf extract against Heterobasidium annosum. Here on this slide, we can see a scheme of all methods used in this research. The first one was extraction, and the second and third were methods used to test antifungal effect. 2 substances were tested in this research. The first one was ethanolic neem leaf extract, and the extraction was done by stirring the mixture of neem leaf powder, which was obtained from commercially available product, and 96% ethanol. After extraction, ethanol solvent was evaporated and the crude extract was resuspended in 10% dimethyl sulfoxide. The second substance which was used in this research was neem oil, which was also obtained from commercially available product. The first method, which was used to test antifungal effect of neem, was monitoring the inhibition of mycelial growth on solid media with different concentrations of leaf extract and oil. In order to test antifungal activity, 5 different concentrations of extract and oil were added into potato dextrose agar media. Agar discs from Heterobasidium annosum plates were placed in the center of every Petri dish. These discs were also placed on a plates with 0.7% dimethyl sulfoxide as a solvent control, and on a plates with a clear PDA as a negative or a growth control. Whole experiment was done in duplicate, and after 5 days of incubation on a room temperature, colony surfaces were measured using ImageJ software. And then the percentage of inhibition was calculated using a standard formula. Here we can see experiment setup before incubation. These plates are plates with oil from lowest to highest oil concentration. And these plates here are plates with extract from lowest to highest extract concentrations. These circles on every single plate are that mycelial or agar disc that I mentioned before. Here are the results, or this is our oil test group after incubation, and this is our negative control. All of this is a fungal growth on a clear PDA without test substances. And here on the plate with lowest oil concentrations, just this is a fungal growth. So it's quite obvious that neem oil inhibited the fungal growth or the mycelial production. And these results are also shown on this graph, where we can see that the most effective was the highest oil concentration, inhibiting the fungal growth for about 80%, and the less effective was the lowest oil concentrations. And on these plates, fungal growth was reduced for 70%. All use concentrations were effective, and there was no statistically significant difference between inhibitory effect of different concentrations. Here we can see the results of the test group with neem extract. Highest extract concentration proved to be the most effective, inhibiting the fungal growth for 86%. The less effective was the oil extract in a concentration of 5.6 milligrams per milliliters, and on these plates, fungal growth was inhibited for 77%. All use concentrations were effective, and also there was no statistically significant difference between inhibitory effect of different concentrations. Here we can now even talk about trend that the higher concentrations will have stronger inhibitory effect than the lower ones, as it was expected. So these results suggest that even lower concentrations of both substances, oil and extract, could be equally effective against Heterobasidium annosum. And the second method, which was used for testing antifungal effect, was monitoring the inhibition of mycelial growth in liquid media with different concentrations of leaf extract. This experiment was set up in Erlenmeyer flasks. Each flask contained 14 milliliters of sabrodextrose broth media and 0.5 milliliters of spore suspension. 5 different extract concentrations were tested, and control were represented as a solvent control and negative or a growth control. After the whole experiment was done in duplicate, and after 6 days of incubation, fungal cultures were filtrated and the collected biomass was oven dried on 70 degrees Celsius for 24 hours. After that, dried weight was measured. And this is our experiment setup. So these are the results. Significant inhibitory effect was noticed just in treatment with 2 highest extract concentrations. The highest extract concentration proved to be the most effective, reducing the biomass formation for 65%. So, failure to observe a clear dependence between biomass formation and extract concentration used in treatment could be as a consequence of precipitation of a test substance. This could also be a reason why neem extract showed much lower antifungal activity in this test than in a test on the solid media. In conclusions, well, in this research, strong antifungal effect of neem was against Heterobasidium annosum was confirmed. All use concentrations were effective. And in future studies, lower concentrations of both substances, oil and extract, should be tested. Also, echo and genotoxicology of neem should be investigated as a precondition of in-field study, or maybe one day its commercial use as a control agent against Heterobasidium annosum. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions from our jury?
Yes, I have a question. Yana, would you please say, how did you find out about the need? What is your source of information about neem? Yes.
Neem is a plant which is native for Indian subcontinent, and it grows everywhere. So many studies in that part of the world were done with the neem, and also is not quite toxic, and it's quite cheap for research. That was a great benefit of this plant.
You have these leaves or seeds or what?
Well, I can go back. Here, this is a neem leaf powder, and in Serbia it can be bought in many places, many pharmacies. And also, this is neem seed oil, which could also be bought in some special shops, which work just with plant soil.
Okay, thank you. This is very interesting. Okay, thank you.
Next question, please.
Could I ask one more question?
Yes, of course.
Jana, do you know what is the active substance of neem oil?
Well, yes, the major percent of neem oil active substances is azadirachtin. But I didn't want to test just one substance. I wanted to work with the whole oil, and I didn't know if the azadirachtin is a substance that's shown, which is that shown antifungal effect, or it's more like different synergistic effects of different substances, or maybe it's something that is not in that large percent in oil. I didn't do a chemical characterization of oil and extract that I've made and which I worked with.
And do you know that this substance is used as a pesticide in agriculture, for example?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know that there are many studies going on testing potential use of azadirachtin and neem, but I'm not sure if azadirachtin is really commercially used. And also, azadirachtin should have a larger impact, environmental impact than a whole oil, because it's in much higher concentrations when you test just one substance than a whole oil or extract or whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions to Jana?
Thank you.
If not, we will move on to the next speaker, Artyom.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Cristina Garcia Arenas. Now it's exactly.
Hello.
Hello again.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can see you.
Okay, so you can, oh no, wait. Okay, this one. So I'm starting with the presentation. So, okay. Hello everyone, I'm Cristina Garcia, and now I'm going to present you my project, Behind the Level. This was supervised by Antonio Lozano while I was studying in the high school ES Infante Elena. So I hope you like it. Now, did you know that 100,000 garments are produced every year while we are throwing out to the rubbish 800,000 tons of textile? But overall, have someone ever thought that this high amount of production is being delocalized more and more every day to developing countries? It was just a couple of years ago when a famous magazine published that almost 61% of brands don't know exactly where all their subcontracted factories are located. So here's the index that will follow during the presentation. I have just set the introduction, then we'll be moving on to some theoretical contents, then I present the objectives, the methodology that I follow, then a quick view of some of the results that I have. Finally, we'll jump into conclusions. So now, here in this, if we take a look at this map, we can see the difference between the minimum and the living wage, where in areas where delocalization is so common. This is calculated in euros, as you might see, and sometimes this gap could reach percentages even higher than the 45%. So also the whole story is full of liberal tragedies like the Plaza Rana one in Bangladesh, where more than 1,000 people died. So here we have the objectives of my project,
Thank you very much.
which are divided into two huge blocks. On the first, on the one hand, we'll focus on consumers, and our main objective in here will focus on discovering if consumers are aware or not of the consequences of their consumption, and secondary objectives will focus on what their daily consumption is about, what's their opinion about the current situation, and also if they know anything about fair trade. And on the other hand, concentrating on the distribution chains, we'll try to analyze in the main objective the efficacy of these corrective methods, and the secondary objectives will focus on what these corrective methods are about and the strategies they follow to put it into practice. Also, we study the coherence of these methods with their public agreements, and finally, the current results that they are having. So now we keep going with the methodology, which as the objectives is divided into two huge blocks. We are starting now with the distribution chains. So our first step in here was to conduct a market analysis, when then we choose these 5 different distribution chains because they were between the most popular and between the ones that have built the most. Then we analyze their code of conduct, and finally we make several standards in order to compare them. So here we have the first standard is about what they say in their code of conduct, then the strategies that they follow to put it in practice, then the social actors, and finally the level of transparency of each distribution chain. On the other hand, for consumers, we designed first a survey. You can see here some screenshots of the original one, and we remain in here that the objective survey was to talk about the objectives of the survey was discovering about the consumption, the knowledge, and the opinion of the users. Also, this survey was made by the Google Forms tool, and it was spread to the population using the snowball sampling. Then once we finished with the survey, all the information was compiled into tables and graphics with the Excel application. Then I made a database, and then we loaded this database into the SPSS statistics programs in order to make mass correlation, percentages, in order to cross some questions of the survey, etc. We will see it later. And here we have a quickly recap of all the steps of the 2 different methodologies. And then now we jumped into the results. Here we are starting with distribution chains again, and now I'll be showing you the original charts that I use for the project and then the translation in English. So here we can see the standard number 1, which was about studying the code of conduct of each brand. Then, for example, here we have the substandard of this bigger standard. And for instance, we can take a quick view of here in number 1.5. We studied if the companies compromises to pay at least the minimum wage in every country they produce, and the result was that yes, obviously all the companies compromises to do that, but in contrast, in the standard 1.7, we see that only 2 of the companies mentions the International Labour Organization and its fundamental agreements about living wages. Also, we carry on with more examples, and here in the standard 2.2, we see that half of the distribution chains have undertaken action for evaluating the impact of their code of conduct, but On the other hand, for us, it has been impossible to see if any of the companies has established a channel for receiving complaints and report of all their workers. Then here you can see standard number 4 and the substandard that we use to evaluate the level of transparency. And also after the charts, we make a lot of graphics to group the information into topics. For example, in the topic of wages, we can remark that, okay, obviously all the companies declare that is fundamental for the workers to pay them at least the living wage of each area. But we have seen, as we said before, that we can't prove that there are now strategies for implementing that. Also, talking about business ethics, again, all the companies declare that it's so important for workers to have freedom of association, but the truth is that the 100% of companies delocalize their production to countries where freedom of association is not guaranteed by the law. Then here we have the results that we got for the consumers. And here I'll be showing you the questions from the survey and then the translation. So in this one, we ask users to mark in what shops they have buy or they usually buy. And then in question number 10, we ask users about their opinion about delocalization. And then if we put these two questions in common, we can see that almost the 100% of people usually buy in these kind of shops, but then they think that delocalization is something negative, or they just don't know for the producer country. Also, here in question number 3, we have it in English. We ask consumers to mark only the question that they asked themselves when buying a new clothes, and the result was that the most marked question was about if they really need that that item of clothing or not, and the least market question with almost a 20% was the under what conditions are and where are these clothes making. Then in this question, we asked consumers about fair trade, and the result was that only the 40% of consumers know what this really means. And finally, we also create, this is in English, we also create a database with all this data and then load it into the SPSS statistics program to cross some questions and get more percentages. For example, here we have the cross of this question. Again, it says if the user thinks delocalization is something positive or negative for the producer country, and then we cross it with this one in here, if they have ever buy or they usually buy in this kind of brands. And the result was that the huge majority of the users that buy actually in this brand then thinks in this kind of brands, then thinks that delocalization could be something negative. Again, here we have another brief example where with this same question cross with another question of opinion, and then again, all the user thinks that this kind of practice could be negative for the producer country. And finally, I would like to conclude by outlining a few of the statements that we discovered throughout this study. So first one is that although there exists codes of conduct for the correction laboral issues, there is still a kind of lack of strategies for implementing the whole code of conduct during the whole supply chain alone. Also, secondary conclusion is that there is still a shortage of protocols for vulnerable groups not to be discriminated during laboral conditions. Then the third one is that 65% of the survey respondents disagree with delocalization practices, but then buy in brands which do it. Fourth is that the 80% of population is disinterested about production conditions. And finally, 2 parts of 3 of the sample is uninformed about fair trade. Then this is some of the bibliography that I used. And finally, I want to say thanks for listening, and also here to have my email for if you want to share articles or information or whatever. I'm always open to give feedback, and that's all. Well, I also want to say thanks to my teachers from the High School Infanta Elena and to my friends and to my family. And sorry, my family only speaks in Spanish, so gracias a mi familia, un beso. And that's all.
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions from our jury?
Okay, I have some questions. Tatiana Prokofyeva. Christina, thank you very much for your scientific work. You have done it with high quality. You have done a good analysis, but I have a question. What recommendation did you offer?
Okay.
What is the practical value of your research?
Okay, so first, thanks for the question. And then always when people ask me this, I like to say that we can always look around us. There are so little shops or local commerce or whatever that produce that have their production inside the country, and that is totally fair. And also we can use the second-hand options which are also more ecological. You know what I mean? But the more important for me is to look around you and look at the shops you have around you, because sometimes we have like so much marketing from big brands, but I'm sure that if you look around you, you can find a lot of options of local commerce or whatever.
Thank you very much. Are you a master's or bachelor's student?
Nowadays I'm an engineering student, but I wanted to do this project about a social matter.
And another question. One of your section of your research is called the theoretical background. But I think not theoretical background, it's empirical background. What do you mean? Not theoretical, but empirical.
Yes, I think you mean the first part. I didn't have so much time to show it in the presentation, but in this part, I was basically doing research about the consequences and about the mechanism of delocalization and things like that. So I didn't have so much time to explain it now, but in the Word document, it's all explaining better. But basically it was...
Thank you very much. I have no question.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a question? Hello, Christina, thank you for your presentation. I'm curious, the results that you have, not the result, the group that you made in your survey, what was the age of people in this group?
Okay, the age were so different. We get starting from people with 14 years and going to people with 17 years, I think. And that was and then we group it into groups of 10 years, for example, from 14 to 24 years, and then from 25 to and go on.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
I have a question. May I ask?
Yes.
Yes? Hello. thank you very much, Christina, for your presentation. And it's very interesting about the consumer side. It's very interesting. That's why I want to, to ask you whether you've got some specific suggestions to improve the situation with the lack of understanding on the side of consumers, what they wear, in which conditions their dresses are produced. Thank you.
Sorry, can you repeat it?
Yes, about the consumers.
Yes.
About the consumers. How have you thought about some specific steps to improve the situation with the understanding, with the lack of understanding from the consumers of this situation?
Okay. So I think it's against the same. Is we have to do a little exam of conscience and then think about if it is really necessary or not do it or not buying so much. And then the next step will be like what I said before, like to look around us and ensure there are a lot of alternatives apart from this kind of brands.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Any other questions? Are we going to our next?
Hello. Garcia, thank you for this research. I have a very small question. Do you work in a team? Was it as some kind of financed by some company, and how do you use the output? I don't know. Do you have a publication or other presentations? How did you or will move the output to the community?
Okay, so when I first presented this project into a conference, I tried then to publish it in some Spanish magazines, but then I have no answers, so I didn't know how to follow. But it's true that some of the jury of that contest said to me that or recommend me that keep trying to publish it, but I have no answer from no one.
Thank you very much for your comments. Thank you. So it's your initiative to make some this research.
Yes, it was my initiative, and I did this project while I was studying at the high school like two years ago. Well, I'm still a student, but yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation and for the questions. I propose to move to our next contenders. Ines Marianum, Jessica Marcus Valentim, Maria Jal, if I spelled it correctly. I cannot hear you. I can see you, but I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so hi everybody. We are a team from Portugal, Aveiro, and our project is entitled by the name of Mercury in the Estuary of Aveiro. What are the impacts and possible solutions? We developed this project while we were still in the secondary school, and we are now currently university students. So just to give you a little bit of a geographic background, this is Portugal, and right in this area, as you can see in the second picture, there is a big entry of sea into the land, and this area is highly contaminated with mercury. And so what was the motivation for our project? We, after reading some newspaper, these pictures are some newspapers of our region in which we can read that there are high concentrations of mercury and arsenic in that region. And so there are some babies that were being born with mercury in their blood and in their hair due to their mothers ingesting seafoods, fishes, and other foods that were prevenient of that ecosystem. And so we tried to find a solution to this problem, because we can have people such as some babies being born with toxic elements in their bodies. So because it can provoke diseases such as cancer. And so to evaluate, to try and find a solution, we took 3 main steps. Being the first one, we started to evaluate the impact that this contamination has in the biodiversity of our ecosystem. So we evaluated the toxicity levels of mercury in the mussels of Mytilus galloprovincialis, and we did it by using a biochemical parameter of lipid peroxidation. This is a picture of the 5 groups that we did the experiments, and we did the first one as a control one at a temperature of 70 degrees and the salinity of 30 grams per liter, reproducing the salinity of the ecosystem, and with no concentration of mercury, so that we could evaluate the stress levels of the bivalves in an environment with no concentration. And so by using the lipid peroxidation, we were able to evaluate the stress levels in all of the experiments. And
we also did the experiments at 2 different temperatures, so we could see the possible impact that the eventual global warming would have in the level of stress of mussels. So we can see that the temperature of 21 degrees Celsius without a concentration of mercury, it has some impact on the stress of the mussels. But when we combine the 2 factors, the temperature and the mercury concentration, we can see that the peroxidation levels, so the stress levels of the mussels are quite higher. We are going to talk about the remediate water later. We also did study the accumulated concentration of mercury in the mussels, so that we could study the impact that the intake of mussels contaminated would have on the people of Aveiro. So we can see that for a mercury concentration of 50 micrograms per liter, which is actually the maximum concentration that the waters can have on the Portuguese legislation, and which is quite the concentration which is present in our ecosystem that we studied, we can see that the concentration of mercury accumulated was around 8.4 micrograms per gram of fresh weight. And we think that this is quite a great amount of mercury, because we don't eat like 1 or 2 mussels, we eat a lot of them, so many grams of fresh water, fresh weight, and so we thought that this was a problem.
And if we have a problem, we need to find a solution. So we decided to investigate biosolvents, and we tried with the nutshells. This, in addition to being biodegradable and not requiring any chemical treatment prior to their use, are a material with a large absorption capacity, given their porous structure and a large number of carboxylic groups. To do so, we tested the efficiency of mercury removal by peanut shells. A percentage removal of about 60% of the contaminant was recorded when a reduced amount of biosolvent, about 1 gram per liter, was added. Because of this result, we decided to try with other shells, and we obtained that pistachio shells are more efficient than peanut shells, with 76% of mercury removal.
We could also see that by having the shells removing the mercury of our waters, we can see that assuming that they removed about 60% of the mercury concentration, we can see that the peroxidation levels are quite lower than the ones we obtained with a 50 micrograms per liter concentration of mercury. So we can see that therefore that the stress that mussels were exposed to was lower when the concentration of mercury was also lower due to the adding of the shells. We also could see that the accumulated concentration of mercury was really lower when we have a concentration of 20 micrograms per liter, as we can see in this table.
In short, we have found an effective way to reduce the aforementioned contamination of water by mercury, and this practice can be used by industries responsible for pollution.
In the future, we are also trying to remove the mercury out of the shells so that it can be reused in the industries, because mercury these days is still in current use for many uses. So if we could do that, we could have a circular economy, and it would be more sustainable and even more environmental friendly. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions from jury?
Yes, I have one question. Did you do an assessment? How much shells do you need for healing your ecosystem to cure your river?
You are asking how many shells do we need to remediate the water from the industry? Is that right?
Yes, it's correct.
The initial idea was to talk to the industries so that when they put the waters that are contaminated in the tanks for treatment, they can have, it depends on the amount of water that we are talking, because if in 1 liter we have to use 1 gram, it will be proportional to the mass of water that the industry has.
But as we are talking about residue that has no economical value, we think that that's good, because we don't use the shells for nothing.
Where can we find so much shells?
Yeah, so in Portugal, we have a costume where people go to cafes and they just eat peanuts with beer, and so there is a lot of excessive waste of peanuts, and not so much as pistachios. We have much more peanuts than pistachios, because it's very common. It's a tradition. In the entire country, they do it. So there is a lot of waste in that aspect. And so the idea was to reduce that waste and put it to use so that we could remove the mercury in the water.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one question, if I may. How
Yes.
do you mean to expose contaminated water to your sorbent, so to say?
Basically, it's what we said. We want to every industry, before taking the waters that they use to the main destination, they have to treat it in the company, and so they have tanks of water, and where they have to do pre-treatment of the water with chemical components. Those are what they use normally. And so our proposal is, instead of using chemical components to remove the mercury, they just put the peanut shells in the bottom of the tank so that they can stay there 24 hours during the pre-treatment, and they can absorb the mercury that is in the water.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Did you compare effect of peanut shells with other sorbents?
We did also compare it to other shells, but the thing is that other sorbents are actually almost the same efficiency, but the thing is that they are much more expensive, and they have environmental consequences, because we are talking about synthetic components, and so they are not as environmentally friendly as these biosorbents.
Thanks.
so I have seen our chairman with с поднятой рукой, with a hand up. Do you still have a question?
No, not now. I just didn't raise it right now.
Okay. Yes. Thank you very much for your participation. We learned about your beautiful city. And my question is, do you know some researchers in Russia about this problem?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question, please?
Okay. Do you know some researchers about your problem in Russia? From Russia.
I don't know of any case in Russia.
Oh, okay.
We only did it. What?
We have so problem too in our rivers, in the cities, towns, and I think you can you may find something interesting in our maybe papers from our country.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, I ask one question. Do you know what active substance or any other mechanism is working to absorb the chemical from the water? So is it the chemical or mechanical process? How does it work?
It is a chemical process, because the shells have a lot of hydroxyl groups in their structure, and so they can easily captivate the ion form of the mercury, which is Hg2+, and so with the hydroxyl components, they can easily capt the ions of the mercury. So it's a chemical reaction.
What active substance in peanut shell taking this from the water, from the shell, from the peanuts?
So how can we remove the mercury from the shells?
Yes.
The the mercury has to be removed in order for the shells to be biodegradable. And so we haven't took that step yet because it's one of the next steps. But the idea was to take it out to industries that can remove. We thought about melting the mercury so that we could then extract the mercury out of the shell and reuse it so that the mercury itself could be recycled.
Okay, thank you.
I think we can move to our next participant. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you.
Our next contender is Mina Crnogorac. I hope I spelled it right. From Serbia.
Hello.
Hello?
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, just a second. Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Mina, and I am from the Department of Psychology in Petnica Science Center. And today I will talk about attitudes of Serbian adolescents toward genetically modified food. GM food contains genes that have been introduced by genetic engineering methods. And this topic raises various controversial opinions, both among scientists and in the global population. It has been shown that relevant factors for the attitude toward GM food are objective knowledge, which is the knowledge that someone truly possesses on this topic. And as for this factor, many inconsistent findings have been found. Next factor is difference between objective and self-assessed knowledge. And self-assessed knowledge is the knowledge that someone thinks he possesses about this topic. And at the very end, age of the respondent, where it has been shown that adolescents have a more positive attitude toward GM food than adults. Therefore, we wanted to determine the attitude of Serbian adolescents toward GM food, and also to examine what are the beliefs that underlie their attitude. Now, because we wanted to know also why do they possess that attitude, we wanted to determine whether beliefs, objective knowledge, and difference between objective and self-assessed knowledge are predictors of their attitude toward GM food. Our first hypothesis is that extracted beliefs from our pilot study will be significant predictors of the attitude. And we also assumed that the more someone knew about this topic, the more positive attitude he will have. And also, the bigger is this difference between objective and self-assessed knowledge, the more negative attitude he will have. Now, before our main study, we conducted a pilot study, and its aim was to extract the beliefs about GM food that adolescents possess. Our sample contained 20 participants, and as you can see, they think that GM food is endangering human health, that is full of chemicals, that is unnatural, that it looks better, that it could solve world's hunger problem, and that it has longer shelf life. Now let's talk about our main study. So our sample contained 244 participants, and our predictors were degree of agreement with each individual belief, objective knowledge, difference between objective and self-assessed knowledge, and our criterion was degree of positive/negative attitude toward GM food. Our online questionnaire was online, and in order to measure their attitude toward GM food, we asked them about their support and concern for the aspects of GM food in Serbia. As for the beliefs, we asked them to what extent do you agree with the following statements? And this question was followed by the stated beliefs that we extracted from our pilot study. Next, we asked them to assess your knowledge of GM food, and as you can see, our participants answered on 7-point Likert scale. And lastly, they answered on a short test that we constructed for this study, and that test contained 9 questions, and offered answers were in true, false, and multiple choice form. This is what we got. So, as you can see, among adolescents in Serbia, opposition and concern are much higher than neutral support and neutral unconcerned attitude. Also, 3 significant beliefs that they possess are that GM food endangers human health, that is full of chemicals, and that GM food could solve world's hunger problem. That you can see also by looking at those beta ponders. And beta ponders are, in general, standardized coefficients that tell us about contribution of each of those predictors in changing our criterion. And those numbers are higher than those. Objective knowledge of participants is also a significant predictor, as well as difference between objective and self-assessed knowledge, but only statistically. In some later analysis, we discovered that correlation between difference and attitude is not significantly higher than correlation between objective knowledge and attitude. And therefore, this significance that we got, we think that is because difference was actually made out of objective knowledge. And in some later statistical analysis, we got that there is an interaction between self-assessed knowledge and objective knowledge. Now let's conclude. Adolescents in Serbia have predominantly negative attitudes toward GM food. And that attitude is more negative the more they believe that is full of chemicals and that GM food endangers human health. And also, it is more positive the more they think that GM food could solve world's hunger problem. One interesting finding is that if they know less about this topic, their attitude is more likely to be negative. And we explain this with 2 possible mechanisms. First one is misconceptions in society. So our adolescents may possess some wrong knowledge about this topic that connotates GM food negatively. And therefore, they think they know a lot about it, but they actually don't. And our second mechanism is fear from the unknown. Now, about that interaction I was talking about between self-assessed knowledge and objective knowledge, that question could be possible for some future research. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions from jury?
Yes, I have a question. Thank you, Nina, for your research. I find it really impressive.
Thank you.
And can you please tell us what is your own opinion on this problem?
Well, I think that GM food has a good background. Like the first use of it was to feed some children in Africa. It has a good idea, but I think that it is not really researched enough. So we have to have some long-term study, and then we should incorporate that in our everyday life.
Okay, thanks.
More questions from the jury? No? Everything is clear for everybody?
We have a question from Dmitry Korotkov, our chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mina, for this presentation and analysis, but you didn't clear. Do you think that gene-modified products is dangerous?
Well, I am here from the background of psychology. I think I'm not quite competent to say whether they are or not. I think that it needs more research. I can say yes or no because that is.
So you analyze only perception, not the
Yes,
real.
yes. I'm not here to analyze GM food. I'm here to analyze attitudes about it.
Okay. The second question: how do you obtain the list of the questions to analyze?
Well, I have this. If you're asking about this subjective knowledge test, I have a few examples of questions that we gave them. There were 9 questions.
Yes. How do you select? Because there are different tensions about the gene-modified products food. There are plenty questions. How do you select exact one?
We were basing on some other previous studies, and they were using some tests about GM food, etc. And we selected a few questions that we could ask our adolescents, but also we made some new questions like this one. Like this one. Because we were reading some literature and found out about those facts, and we wanted to know whether our adolescents know about it. And as for this one, it is about law in Serbia for GM food.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And any other questions, or we move to our last contender today? Okay, thank you for the presentation and
thank you.
And for the questions. And we have Yulia Karavashkina from Russian Federation, our last contender for today. Hello.
Hello. Now I want to. Okay, I found.
Okay, we can see.
Hello, my name is Julia Kravashkina, and I'm from Russia. I'm a student of 11th grade, and I want to introduce you to research on the title, Development and Production. The current model defines the basic parameters of gas with using only one drop. Low quality fuel is one of the main factors of primitive failure of the car engine. Recently, the market offers a large number of different devices that determine the quality of gas. However, they have a number of significant disadvantages. For example, they're expensive and require several liters of gas to measure, cannot maintain the required temperature, which reduces the accuracy of measurements, and cannot determine the presence of water in the fuel. After the analysis, I decided to create my own device, which will correct these shortcomings. On this slide, you can see my goal. Oh, sorry, it's in Russian. I don't know how. Sorry. To develop and construct a small-sized and cheap device that can determine the quality of gasoline by only one drop. And in order to achieve this goal, I need to complete the following tasks, which are currently presented on the slide. You can read this. The physical principle of operation of the device is very simple. It's based on the fact that the permittivity of gas with different octane numbers is different. As is known, the capacitance of a capacitor is proportional to the permittivity of the electric that fills it. In the literature, the functional dependence of octane numbers on the permittivity obtained experimentally for various brands of gas are known. In this case, the capacitance of or the capacity is changed, which is two small pins. Two small pins, which on drop of gas is held due to surface tension forces. To increase the accuracy of measurement, gas should always be at the same temperature, from 20.5 to 21 degrees above zero. It's the temperature that the calibration models are taken. You could see the calibration models on the last slide. To fix this problem, I made a temporary bench equipment which picked up the desired heating element, and temperature sensor worked out a piece of software to hold the set temperature of a drop of gas. Here is a simplified version of diagram of the future device. There is a drop of gas on two pins that play the role of capacitor, and to maintain the temperature regime, a temperature sensor and the heating element are built into the circuit. Everything else is done by the microcontroller. This is my device, and I can show it for you, but I have a terrible headache when I open the gas at home, and now I come to demonstrate the working of my device, and I will continue. It's very important to measure conductivity. Since the conductivity value greater than 400 microsiemens per meter, it can indicate the presence of water in gas. For example, it has been experimentally established that adding only 1% of water to gas, and the permittivity of water is 81, leads an increase in its permittivity from the initial value from 2.0 to the level 2.9, and accordingly to the significant error in the measurement of octane number. At the same time, according to numerous statistics, water is the main type of undesirable admixture in the gas at the gas station. What my device can do, you can see this on the slide, and I will give you some seconds. It's very important because this is a different of my device. And now let's look at the operation of my device according to the diagram. From the port, the 7th port of microcontroller, a sequence of pulses with a frequency of 60 kilohertz is output and sent to the left pin of the sensor. If a drop of gas is found in it, the pulse voltage is removed from the second pin. This voltage is very small, and this voltage is very small and varies depending on the amount of octane number. Then the small voltage is amplified by the transistor VT2, detected by the diodes VD2, VD at the second and VD at the third, and as a constant voltage is coupled to the analog input A5 of the microcontroller, where, according to the program I wrote, it's processed and displayed on the LCD display. We can see the results on the first line of LCD display, like octane number. To measure the conductivity, a constant voltage is supplied to the same measuring socket, and via the VD, the first diode, the first diode is fed to the analog input A0, the microcontroller, where is processed and displayed on the second line of my display as a number conductivity. to ensure that the drop has a stable temperature, the following circuit elements work. The command to turn on and off is sent from the 5th port. The transistor works like a key. The resistor, the 3rd, is a heater, and resistor, the 8th, temperature sensor. Information from the sensor displayed on the display and on the system for sending a command to measure temperature and conductivity. Resistor, the 7th, is used to set the starting 0 or the measurement. So the entire device is powered by 9-volt battery and consumes no more than 40 milliamperes. This is my conclusions, and thank you for your attention. I'm ready to answer your questions.
Julia?
Yes.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, of course.
Do you see any ways to improve your device?
What? I didn't hear you. Sorry.
Do you see any ways for improving of your device?
Ways? What does it mean?
Ways. Improvements.
Okay. Sorry, my English is not so good, and maybe I'm afraid of this presentation. Sorry.
Don't worry.
I want to say that my device can help to for car drivers who want to understand, is it gas good or not? For example, my mom, when she used the gas station with not so good gas, after that her engine was damaged. That's after that I had idea to make this device, and I think that it will be very useful for car drivers, for all car drivers.
Julia, I understand, but my question was about the ways of improvement of your device. Maybe you see any other aspects for improvement. As example, in your microscheme, or maybe in your approaches?
Maybe I want to, if I want to make this device better, for example, in the slide with the temperature, there you can see, you could see that my device can measure temperature from minus 40 and to plus 30. But in my device, we have only temperature sensor, which can understand is the temperature of my pins lower than 20 degrees above 0. So in my device, I think that I should in my device I should to use something like I don't know, ventilator. If the temperature is higher than 20 degrees above 0.
Some cooling device, yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions. Are you going to defend your intellectual property for this device? Because you give us full scheme of your device in open access.
Yes, it's full diagram. I don't know what's the question. Sorry.
Are you going to defend your intellectual property for your device? Means that you patent.
I don't know about it because it's very difficult. I have got more devices, and somebody told me about patent. I don't know how it will be in English. and I want, but it's too difficult right now because I should have a lot of people who will help me to improve my project, to improve my project, and after to have some money or to give my project to, for example, some I forgot the word.
It's okay.
Okay. The factory. Sorry.
Any more questions from the jury? No? Okay, it was our last participant, and today we finish our international workshop, and I would like to ask the chairman of our jury to say a couple of words right now.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Tatiana. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Tatiana, for the invitation to say a couple of words in the final of this panel. And what I would like to mention, first of all, it was a big pleasure to see such a talented young scientist. And I remember by myself when in these years we do such crazy things like rockets on potassium nitrate and make computers on Z spectrum, and I don't know, writing programs, and I was localizing BASIC on Russian language, and everything was possible at this age. And what is very important, I would mention, is the role of tutor and this level of development, because it's difficult to overestimate the role of tutors. And I think we have something, create some ideas and discuss maybe later how we can arrange tutor support for this type of young scientists to facilitate their progress in this regard. But anyway, it was a big pleasure. I remember the film Big Bang Theory, which many of us saw, and right now we're just looking this in the life of our presenters. It was not a story; it just the real life, and this is the big pleasure. It was a big pleasure. Finally, as I said, it was difficult. It will be difficult to make a decision and qualify it and select someone finally from this group of students, because I would say all of participants are very good young scientists and beginners. So we'll see then with the final results of the jury in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you, Dmitry. And I would like to tell you about some organizational moments. Now jury needs some time to summarize all the results to evaluate your project. And the awarding ceremony is going to be held at the end of November. I will inform all of you by email about the time and date of the awarding ceremony. Thank you all. Thank you to all the participants, to all the jury for their questions, to the participants for their projects, to the supervisors for their great work. And hope to see you in Moscow someday after this situation with COVID-19. Good luck And thank you for this great time together. Goodbye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you, organizers, for this event. Yes, it was perfect. Really, really.
Thank you
Yes.
for your
See you
work.
then.
Okay.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
See you at the end of November.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.